do today is give you some tools that cultures use to try and gender polarize people, or gender polarize males and females. While the details vary, there are some patterns across the globe that predict gender polarization and also predict attractiveness across cultures. And we're going to see that in many ways these concepts are more linked than we would have hoped otherwise. So one thing we looked at last time, a mature neoteny, that is someone who shows neoteny traits but is also mature. So it's not as if we find babies sexually attractive, we find people who are mature and show these traits sexually attractive. Also exaggerated sex differences. We're going to look at some real biological sex differences, and one of the things that cultures are going to do is exaggerate them. We're going to do this with clothing, we're going to do this with grooming and so forth, and finally status is going to be a cue that's going to predict all these variables. So what I want to do is I want to give you some examples that you can go through and you say, okay, this is this is one way that we're going to push the sexes apart, and also one way that we're going to try and attract mates. So let's see some of these in action. We already looked at baby faceness and neoteny. This is literally the same slide, just setting it up. So we've already looked at this, right? So yeah, it's still cute?
Yep.
Still, okay, good. All right, still cute. So one of the cues here, one of the predictor variables here that we're going to be interested in is this neoteny. And one way we can see this is with eyes. And what we find here is that compared to adults, infants tend to have relatively large eyes. So one prediction might be to enhance your neotenous traits, you would make your eyes relatively larger. So here's some kittens showing their big eye. I know, see?
Is it cross-cultural to be attracted to eyes?
The idea here is not that they're attracted to eyes. It is that eyes are going to be one of the traits that often get used to emphasize attractiveness.
Okay.
So it's not all cultures are attracted to eyes. I actually don't know if that's true or not. Because we're going to look at a whole series of traits that our culture likes, that other cultures hate, other cultures love, we hate. It's more like eyes are on the list of traits they get picked from, right? Like, as far as I know, no culture ever has said, you know, the olecranon is where it's at, right? You know, as far as I know, that's never been a feature, but eyes do get picked. Larger eyes often serves a cue to youth. So our prediction is going to be, if you can find the gender, and this is not the same, this may not be the same in all culture, but if you can find the gender whose age, whose relative youth is emphasized, that gender is also probably going to do things to make their eyes larger. Well, which gender is that in our culture? Females. So we're going to predict that females, more than males, are going to do things to accentuate the largeness of their eyes. Well,
Eyeliner.
like what?
Eyeliner.
Eyeliner,
Mascara.
mascara. I would just like to go on record, I've been asked my whole life if I wear a mascara or eyeliner. I do not. I just have really great eyelashes. Like literally, like my eyelashes and my eye color, the only traits I have that are good. Otherwise, yeah. No, otherwise it's downhill. It's like, oh, you look great, you know. This was an interesting article. It was like 33 ways to make your eyes look bigger. I was like, seriously? 33? But here are just some of them. Obviously, mascara to make your eyes look bigger. Eyeliner, make your eyes look bigger. I didn't remember the other 31. Okay.
Maybe
But-
it's ways to use the mascara.
What?
Maybe it's different ways to use the.
Yeah, it could be. I don't remember the other 31. I was like, are you serious? 33 ways to do this? I know like one was like fake eyelashes was one of them. Never a concern of mine. All right. In many cultures, including ours, youth is emphasized. Our culture tends to really emphasize the youth, especially of females, although males, we're getting it too. Like, I've even seen in my lifetime how the youthfulness of males has been more and more emphasized. As I get older. Find that strange, or what? I mean, like, when I was younger, if you were a male and you just worked and whatever, it's like, okay, that was all you had to do. Now it's like you need a job and you need, muscles and I'm like, God damn it. What? Or I can just be like, I give up, I'm never going to have a six-pack unless I'm carrying it. That's just, It's better to have the one that you carry. I'm just saying, like, you have to have, like, below, like, 10% body fat to get a six. I'm like, yeah, it's never going to happen. I enjoy the other kind of six-pack a little too much. But anyway, all right, so what we can do, though, especially with females, we can do two things to try and give some content to this preference for youth. What we can do is we can plot. There is a term in anthropology called reproductive value. And I've plotted the reproductive value in females. And all this means is the number of future offspring that you will have. Or can have, technically. Not will have, can have. Right? So if you're female, your reproductive value, the number of potential future offspring, obviously peaks at menarche, where it has to go up, or somewhere around menarche. Actually, menarche is going to be a little variable for a while. So what I've done is I've sort of, given some numbers here. So menarche used to be later than it is now, but 16 is a nice round age. And as females age, what happens to their eggs? They get old. They get old, right? Start running the risk of various chromosomal disorders, and plus females reach menopause, where it drops back to 0. So we can plot the female reproductive value. We can also plot something known as fertility. And this is the likelihood of conceiving and raising and successfully giving birth to a child. It also peaks. And what we can do is we can introduce a new word, brand new word. We can say, well, if we can get a concept of a female who is high reproductive value, high fertility, those cues saying I am high fertility, high reproductive value should be found attractive, would be the argument. And the word we can introduce here is we can call this period of heightened reproductive value and heightened fertility, we can call this, for want of a better word, the Hebic period. Hebic coming from the Greek word for marriage. So this is often showed that you were ready for marriage. And this symbol here is this is one of Michelangelo's symbols, showing a lot of these Hebic signals. Notice her relatively large eyes. Hair, at least among Caucasians, tends to darken as you age. So relatively lighter hair in Caucasians is a cue to youth. So now I'll offer extra credit for what is in other cultures. Like if you are, say, Iranian or Persian or Arab, I don't know the pattern in those cultures. As far I have no clue. Or Chinese or China. So if you want extra credit to go, or African American, a lot of this research. Here's sort of the bad news. I'm going to take a lot of this research has been done on whites. So we need to get a more cross-cultural view. So if y'all want to find hair color in non-white population over, can you just sit on the side so you're not in there? Or you can sit or there. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to refer to the Hebic period as the peak period of reproductive value and fertility. And what we can do here is we can say the traits that females show during this period. Because the argument is going to be that females are going to tend to try to exaggerate Hebic traits. Right?
Why wouldn't the Hebic traits be found in cross-culturally among females?
Well, if, let's say for the sake of argument, if an African sample, so people who literally African, if we find that their hair tends to lighten as they get older, we would expect in that population darker hair to be the cue of youth. So it's the cue of youth that, if that is important, that you want to emphasize, and that may play out differently in different populations. Some of them are going to be constant, like waist-hip ratio is going to be constant, but hair color may not be one. So if the culture emphasizes female youth, we would predict that they would emphasize whatever traits per that population. Does that make sense? So to give some examples of how this plays out, I'll give you this one quote. I actually got two quotes today from my good buddy Hesiod. Hesiod was a poet who lived around 800 BC in Greece. And he wrote a book called Works and Days. He wrote it to his brother, trying to get, his brother was sort of a ne'er-do-well, and he wrote this book to try to get his brother to start being more productive. Basically, it's an older brother writing to a younger brother. But he writes to his brother, "You are of the age to marry a wife and bring her home with you when you are about 30. Okay? Not being many years short of that mark, nor going much over. So, okay? That age is right for marriage. Let your wife be full grown," and this is my note, that is in puberty, 4 years, and marry in the 5th. So about what age is he saying? So the brother's 30. What age should his wife be?
16 or 17.
16, 17, what?
Between 16, 17, and 18.
Somewhere between 16, 17, 18. And that's why actually I have the Hebit going down a little younger. If we ignore our cultural, legal issues and look historically, the 18 was not a magic cutoff in many cultures. They actually went younger than 18. So, all right. And this actually is very, very common in Greek and Roman societies. Throughout the Greek and Roman world, it's common for women to marry fairly early after puberty. So puberty was around the age of 13, and we do have records of women being married that young, but usually it was 16 to 20 was the more norm, but being married to much older males was the norm as well, which is quite different from our culture. If you're a 30-year-old male and you say, "Man, I would love a 16-year-old,"
In the present day.
in our current culture,
But they still tend to date women that are much, much younger.
yeah.
Like, if you saw a 30-year-old man with a 22-year-old, you're not going to say anything to them.
So one issue is our culture does allow that in a way that it doesn't allow you to do that.
Right.
Like if you're a 30-year-old female going out with a 22-year-old
But-
male,
Right.
even if you found him hot and, you know, he's got rock hard body, we would still go, we have words, you know, we have words for that. Like what, like cougar, you know, or puma, or I don't know if there's any other ones.
Robin the Cradle.
Yeah, which is weird, but it's like males do get accused of robbing the cradle, but nowhere near the same.
Well, they do, but it's more of a term of endearment for
Yeah.
men. Like,
Means
oh,
that
you're
the man
robbing the
still has
cradle.
it.
Like, robbing the cradle with that one, you know. So, but so it could be cultural. Like even if you found, like if you were 30 and you found a much younger male attractive, you're not as much allowed to act on that. And so it's tough to see, do women actually show that preference, or is it they're not, or do they not show it? So what we know is they don't act on it as much as men do.
But couldn't it just be the cue to use switches from females actually wanting the youthful mate at an elder age?
Females. I mean, that would be the argument. Do females, say in their mid-30s, do they want a more youthful mate?
Well, I would say the 30s. I would say like
How old are you?
postmenopausal.
Postmenopausal, so okay, let's say 50, right? Does a 50-year-old woman want a 22-year-old hot?
A woman at my work is, she's around 45 to 50, and she's dating a 25 to 30-year-old. Well, she's not dating, she's actually married. They're married.
Doesn't the woman's sexual peak like heighten as they get older? So then
There's
going younger?
no data on the sexual peak in females peaks at that age.
I'm talking like 30s.
I mean, the data that exists does not support a sexual peak at that age. Okay, yeah, that's sort of one of our cultural mythologies. I suspect if there's any truth to it, it's women get more comfortable with themselves and not hormonally. I think culture plays a huge role in this. But a lot of my female friends do report that, like, you know, in my 20s, you know, I didn't know who I was, but now in my 30s, I'm like giving directions. I know what I want. I'm like, this is what I need.